couple of days ago, I got a call from a 17-year-old boy, and he wanted to talk about his father. Terrified of his father, which is kind of awful to think about, isn't it? Afraid, terrified of your own father. But he was. Father's critical, judgmental, intimidating, yelling, barking commands. So I just explained the father to the boy, how the father's been afraid all of his life, how I'd spoken to the father on several occasions, and even though he attempted to be intimidating and controlling in the conversation, it's pretty obvious he was just afraid. And it was all he knew how to do. So 1 day later, the 17-year-old boy wrote me. He said, "Today when we sat down for dinner, I just sat at the head of the table where my father normally sits. And he was so confused that I was sitting at the head of the table that he sat in my place." He said, "I sat there at the head of the table and looked down at everybody in the family. My dad, my mom, I can't remember what it was. I think 3 or 4 siblings. And I saw them as you described my father to me. In other words, I saw them as a loving father instead of critical. And I saw that they were all afraid and that they were feeling unloved. And I felt compassionate." And then he added, "Now, about my father, now that I see him as afraid, I'm not afraid of him anymore." It all changes. Event, judgment, feeling, reaction. It's almost impossible just to decide you're not going to be afraid. Just impossible. If you judge that a knife is about to be plunged into your chest, you will be afraid, if that's your judgment. So changing feelings is very difficult. Simply changing behaviors is very difficult, as proven by uncounted addicts throughout the world. But changing our judgment is possible. In just a few minutes of conversation with this kid, his judgment changed because he was willing to learn. And after that, his feelings and his behavior toward his family changed dramatically in 1 day. Now, I'm not saying that's going to last for the rest of his life. Not that naive. But it can happen very quickly.